Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
You might think you know the Catholic Church, the rituals, the structure, the centuries-old traditions. But what if I told you that one pope came along and quietly flipped the script on nearly everything we thought was set in stone? Today, we're diving into the jaw-dropping legacy of Pope Leo XIV, a man whose papacy shook the foundations of the Vatican and left behind changes that many people still don't even realize were his doing. From controversial reforms to shocking shifts in global influence, this video is going to take you deep into the 10 most unexpected ways Pope Leo XIV changed the Catholic Church forever. Stay with me until the end, because number 10 will completely change how you think about the Church's role in the modern world. Pope Leo XIV, born Giovanni Battista Ferraro, was elected to the papacy during a time of deep conflict and crisis within the Catholic world. The early 20th century Church was wrestling with modernism, war, political chaos, and growing disconnection from ordinary believers. Many expected him to be just another caretaker pope. Instead, he became one of the most transformative leaders the Vatican had ever seen. First, let's begin with something that shocked the inner circle of the Curia. He drastically reformed the Vatican Bank. For decades, the Vatican Bank had operated in a cloak of secrecy. Finances were murky, accountability was low, and rumors of corruption had swirled for years. Pope Leo XIV initiated an independent financial audit, the results of which were never made public, but what followed spoke volumes. Several high-ranking officials were quietly removed and new systems were introduced, bringing transparency, digital banking protocols, and outside oversight into the Vatican's most secretive institution. This move didn't just ruffle feathers, it tore down decades of tradition. Second, he opened up the Vatican archives to the public. Imagine centuries of hidden documents, letters from saints and sinners alike, political secrets, and papal correspondences, locked away behind marble and silence. For centuries, the Vatican archives were accessible only to select scholars approved by the highest ranks. But under Leo XIII's directive, the Church launched a digital archive project, allowing millions of pages to be viewed online. This move shocked the academic world and thrilled historians. Some hailed it as a leap toward truth and transparency. Others feared the revelations it could bring. Third, he redefined how the Church addressed mental health. For generations, the EU Church had approached mental illness with a blend of spiritual diagnosis and theological interpretation. But Pope Leo XIV, influenced by both personal experience and modern psychology, established the first-ever papal commission on mental wellness. He openly acknowledged depression and anxiety as real, medical conditions, not just spiritual afflictions. Under his guidance, the Church began training priests in basic psychological counseling and partnered with mental health professionals. To many, this was unheard of. A pope acknowledging science and soul in tandem. Number 4, he transformed the papal wardrobe. This might sound trivial until you understand what it symbolized. The papal regalia has long been a symbol of power, tradition, and divine authority. But Leo XIV shocked the world when he appeared in public wearing a simplified cassock with none of the typical ornamentation. Gone were the jeweled mitres, the crimson slippers, the gold-threaded robes. He said, "My authority comes not from what I wear, but how I serve." This visual shift sent a clear message. The Church was no longer about pomp, but purpose. Fifth, he allowed married men to be ordained as priests under specific conditions. This decision ignited a firestorm across dioceses. For centuries, priestly celibacy had been seen as a cornerstone of Roman Catholic discipline. Leo XIII didn't abolish celibacy, but he did create an exception. In regions experiencing extreme priest shortages, married men of proven faith and service could be ordained. Critics called it dangerous, supporters called it practical. Either way, it marked a dramatic shift in how the Church viewed vocation and ministry. Sixth, he held interfaith prayer services in the Vatican gardens. Yes, you heard that right. The Vatican, long viewed as a fortress of exclusivity, became a host to joint prayer services with Muslim imams, Jewish rabbis, Hindu gurus, and Buddhist monks. Leo XIV believed that dialogue wasn't just optional. It was essential. These gatherings were both beautiful and controversial. To some, they were powerful symbols of peace. To others, they were unthinkable acts of compromise. But one thing was clear. Leo was unafraid to step beyond walls. Number 7. He removed a centuries-old ban on certain books. The Index Librorum Prohibitorum, or List of Prohibited Books, had long banned certain texts from being read by Catholics. Although the list had been officially abolished in 1966, Leo XIV went a step further. He publicly encouraged Catholics to read works of philosophy, science, and even literature that had once been deemed dangerous, provided they were approached with discernment. This was more than symbolic. It was an invitation to engage with the world, not retreat from it. Number 8. He restructured the role of women in the Church. This was perhaps one of the most debated actions of his papacy. Without ordaining women to the priesthood, Leo XIV nonetheless elevated their authority. He appointed women as heads of key Vatican departments, gave nuns the ability to vote in synods, and expanded theological education for women religious. He also emphasized the voices of women saints and mystics in church teachings. It wasn't revolution, it was evolution, and it sparked hope and criticism in equal measure. Ninth, he declared environmental stewardship a moral obligation. Long before climate change became a daily headline, Pope Leo XIV published an encyclical declaring care for the earth a sacred duty. He linked pollution and deforestation directly to sin, calling environmental destruction a failure to honor God's creation. He urged parishes to adopt green energy, reduce waste, and protect the vulnerable communities most affected by environmental damage. His boldest move? Converting parts of the Vatican to run on solar energy. And finally, number 10, the one that left the entire Catholic world stunned. He submitted himself to a public confession. In an unprecedented act of humility, Pope Leo XIII sat before a crowd in St. Peter's Square and openly confessed his personal failures, not sins of scandal or doctrine, but failures of courage, empathy, and leadership in moments of silence when he should have spoken. The act shocked even his closest advisors, but it also moved millions. In that one moment, he showed the world that the Pope, like every person, is fallible and in need of grace. So, what do all these changes really mean? They mean that Pope Leo XIII was not just a spiritual leader. He was a reformer, a bridge builder, and a visionary. He walked the tightrope between tradition and transformation with grace, and while not everyone agreed with his decisions, few could deny the power of his conviction. He didn't change doctrine. He didn't rewrite the gospel. But he challenged the Church to be more human, more honest, and more in touch with the world it serves. His legacy continues to spark debate in seminaries, inspire young Catholics around the globe, and shape conversations at the highest levels of church leadership. To this day, his name is spoken with both reverence and controversy, and perhaps that's exactly what he hoped for. Because in the end, Pope Leo XIII reminded the world that real faith doesn't fear change. It transforms through it. If this story opened your eyes or surprised you in any way, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who loves history or spirituality, and drop a comment below. What change shocked you the most? Was there one that inspired you? Or maybe even one you disagreed with? And if you enjoy deep, well-researched stories about remarkable leaders, spiritual journeys, and hidden chapters of history, Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a new video. Until next time, stay curious, stay thoughtful, and never stop seeking the truth. Today, we're diving into the jaw-dropping legacy of Pope Leo XIV, a man whose papacy didn't just make headlines, it rewrote them. From bold financial reforms to radically human acts of humility, these are 10 ways Pope Leo XIV changed the Catholic Church forever. And you'll want to stay until the end, because number 10 will shake your perception of the papacy itself. He cleaned up the Vatican bank, and no one saw it coming. Before Leo XIV, the Vatican bank was like a locked vault of rumors. Whispers of offshore accounts, questionable deals, and unchecked power had hovered for decades. Many knew it was broken, but no one dared fix it. Until Leo, not only did he commission a full financial audit, he brought in non-clergy financial experts, implemented blockchain-based record-keeping, and introduced real-time audits that made the Vatican's finances more transparent than ever before. In the span of a year, several long-standing officials retired early, and the Church's finances moved from leather-bound ledgers to cloud-based systems with outside oversight. This wasn't just a cleanup. It was a total reset of how the Church managed its billions. Some insiders called it a betrayal of tradition, but to the outside world, it was a signal. The era of secrecy was over. He opened the secret archives, literally. Centuries. The Vatican Apostolic Archives were the stuff of legend, locked behind gates, guarded by rules, and accessible only to a chosen few. But under Leo XIV's watch, everything changed. He ordered the digitization of over 80 million pages, releasing centuries of papal letters, trial records, and even secret, diplomatic cables to the public. Anyone, from a curious student to a seasoned historian, could now explore letters between Renaissance popes, classified reports from the Inquisitions, or the Church's secret dialogue during World War II. This wasn't just transparency, it was revolution. Some historians say it did more for Church credibility than any sermon could. Critics feared what might surface. But Leo's response was simple. Truth is not the enemy of faith. Ignorance is. He changed the Church's approach to mental health and started a movement. Pope Leo XIV had lived experience with grief, anxiety, and loss, and instead of hiding it, he let it shape his leadership. He founded the Papal Commission on Mental Wellness, acknowledging conditions like depression and PTSD as legitimate medical issues, not just spiritual weaknesses. In a move that stunned conservative bishops, he even issued a pastoral letter urging every seminary to teach basic mental health awareness, and offered grants for training priests in psychological first aid. Then came the Sancta Mente Initiative, a program offering free therapy, trauma support, and meditation rooms in parishes worldwide. Suddenly, churches weren't just spaces for prayer, they were healing centers for the soul and the mind. And for many struggling in silence, that meant everything. He stripped the power from the papal wardrobe. Traditionally, the Pope's garments are symbols of divine authority: gold-threaded robes, red leather shoes, and ornate mitres. But Leo also stunned the world when he walked into St. Peter's Square in a plain white cassock and no shoes. He said, "If Christ washed feet, why would I polish mine in gold?" His choice to walk barefoot on Holy Thursday through the streets of Rome, washing the feet of the homeless, refugees, and even ex-convicts, was more than symbolic. It was a rebuke of clerical pride and a call to return to the humility of Christ. Cameras flashed. Critics scoffed, but millions were moved. This was a different kind of pope, and the world was watching. He welcomed married men into the priesthood under radical new rules. This one split the church. For centuries, celibacy had been a defining feature of Roman Catholic priests. But Pope Leo XIV saw a growing crisis, especially in remote regions where churches were closing due to priest shortages. His solution: a new pastoral exception that allowed married men of faith and service to be ordained in specific regions under crisis. Bishops from the Amazon to Siberia rejoiced. Parishes once forgotten were reborn. And for the first time in centuries, the Church began openly discussing what it really meant to be a priest. Leo didn't eliminate celibacy, but he challenged the assumption that holiness required it, and that made waves. He turned the Vatican into an interfaith sanctuary. Imagine it. In the heart of the Vatican gardens, a rabbi, an imam, a Buddhist monk, and the Pope praying side by side. This wasn't fiction. It was Pope Leo XIV's vision for peace. He launched the annual Garden of Nations event, inviting religious leaders from across the globe for shared prayers, moments of silence, and public commitments to peace. 1 year, after a series of global terrorist attacks, he held a vigil where religious leaders laid stones in a circle, each inscribed with the word peace in their language. Millions watched online. Some cheered, some condemned. But for Leo, this was non-negotiable. If we cannot stand together in prayer, how will we stand together in suffering? 7. He ended the Church's silent censorship of books. Officially, the Index of Forbidden Books ended in 1966. Unofficially, suspicion lingered. But Pope Leo XIV didn't just let it go. He publicly encouraged Catholics to read once-banned works. From Darwin to Dostoevsky, from Voltaire to Freud, he said, "Faith that fears ideas has already lost its light." Theologians began holding book clubs, dioceses hosted philosophy debates, and youth groups discussed science without shame. Rather than create fear, it sparked fascination. And that fascination brought thousands back to the pews. In a strange twist of fate, the Church's willingness to embrace knowledge made it more trusted in the age of misinformation. He gave women a powerful seat at the table. Pope Leo XIV didn't ordain women, but he did everything just short of it. He appointed the first woman to lead a Vatican office. He gave nuns voting rights in global synods, and he funded theology programs specifically for female scholars. Under his leadership, the first international gathering of Catholic women theologians was held inside the Vatican itself. For the first time, sermons quoted not just Aquinas or Augustine, but Catherine of Siena, Julian of Norwich, and Edith Stein. It wasn't just inclusion, it was restoration. And while traditionalists resisted, young women around the world felt seen in ways they never had before.